The Ryen Russillo podcast, where winners meet, champions are built here on this pod. Speaking of champs, we have George Russell, F1 driver, champion of the Canadian Grand Prix, his future with Mercedes. We're just going to talk racing, get back to the F1 stuff, so I'm excited about that. Normally, I wouldn't leave with that over the NBA Finals, but we're excited to have Russell in after the win. So the NBA Finals, Thunder up 3-2 in this series. I don't know that there's a ton of surprises left for us anymore in this finals, but we'll run through it. Jalen Williams, 40 points. That won't be a surprise if it ever happens again. He was terrific last night. Turnover is part of the issue with the Pacers, but down 18, cut it to 2. Are we doing this again? No, we're not. We'll run through everything, including the Halliburton injury that limited him in the second half. And we'll stay with the basketball theme. The head coach of the Duke Blue Devils, it's Jon Scheyer, who has 3 potential lottery picks for next week's NBA draft. So we'll talk to him about Cooper. We'll talk to him about Khan. We're going to talk about Malawach. We're going to talk about his season and his journey to becoming the head coach there and life advice. You're listening to the Ryen Russillo podcast presented by FanDuel. America's #1 sportsbook has made it easier than ever to get in on the action during the NBA Finals. And with live betting, the tip-off is just the beginning. Look for the live SGP tab on the FanDuel Sportsbook app and build your bet slip. Then sit back and enjoy the game as you track the outcome of your parlay right in the app. If you don't already have it, download the FanDuel app today to make every moment more. The Ringer is committed to responsible gaming. Please visit rg-help.com to learn more about the resources and helplines available, and listen to the end of this episode for additional details. Must be 21 and older and present in select states, or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Thunder take game 5. They're up 3-2 in the series. 1 win away from an NBA championship. Let's get into last night's action. At this point, it does feel like everybody kind of knows what to expect from each other. Not a ton of surprises. I always kind of look at whether or not Daigneault wants to stay big. Clearly, he prefers Chet, although I thought Hartenstein had much better moments last night. It was actually interesting to see them kind of run that first role play for him. It was something we just haven't seen from him in the finals at all. But if you look at the start of the second half, he's going right back to Caruso with the starting 4 guys. Clearly his preferred lineup. Although I would say that, look, we know the Thunder won the game last night. They have stretches where they're just awful at controlling the basketball on the defensive glass. Like the rebound numbers, they're not egregious. The offensive differential isn't necessarily egregious. I don't know if it's an energy thing. I don't know if it's the perimeter guys not finding a way to get assigned to somebody. I don't think it's as simple as Chet, who I think overall was really good last night, but he ends up on the ground constantly because of his physical limitations. Like he'll have some kind of face-off type plays with Miles Turner, and you just expect that Chet's going to be on the ground. But this game, despite the big lead early, and I'm going to get to all this kind of stuff, there are these moments where it feels like it is so hard for them to try to figure out a way to control the defensive glass. The same thing that we saw in the fourth quarter of game 4, where they had 4 fouls called on them trying to get defensive rebounds the first 6 minutes. And then they were in the bonus. The Pacers were in the bonus because of so many of those fouls, 4 of them because of defensive rebounding, a 5th one on a Nesmith shot attempt, but in the bonus at 6:09 to go in game 4. So this game was about Jalen Williams, right? J-Dub. 40 points for him on 14 of 25 shooting, and likely putting to bed the question if he could ever be the number 2 on a title contender, which is totally fine because I think there were games, whether you go back to last year or just even the Denver series where he had 2 brutal games. Game 4, 10 points, 2 of 13 shooting, 0 of 5 from 3. Game 6, he had 6 points against Denver, 3 of 16, 0 of 4 from 3. So, because he's younger, because this still is new, and despite their regular season profile, there was still, I think, fair. Like, is he really going to be somebody that you count on the entire time? And then he goes off last night and continues to put up, I think he's like 7 points per fourth quarter here in the playoffs. And now I look back at some of the Dallas stuff where, when that series was 2-2 and the game 5 loss, he averaged 17 in that series. He's averaging 26, 6 and 4 in this series. He's also getting to the free throw line 9 times a game in the 5 games against the Pacers. In that Dallas series, he had 12 points in that game 5. And even though the game log a year later historically probably doesn't look as bad as it felt at the time, I still sometimes defer to how I felt in the moment. And it just didn't really feel like he was a guy that can be entirely counted on. Now he's somebody who can be the number 1 option on a team that's one game away from winning, one win away from winning a championship here. The advanced stuff between this year and last year with Jalen Williams isn't necessarily that alarming. It's not this massive leap from where he was last season. I think part of that's the 3-point shooting, because this is what's crazy. Like, coming off of last year's playoffs, I didn't know how many times I was going to pencil Jalen Williams in for 40 points. Maybe it's a bit like Jamal Murray early on. I was kind of thinking about Jamal Murray, where when he had those Lakers scoring outbursts in that series in 23, I was like, okay, I think we can say that this guy's clearly arrived after missing some playoff runs with injuries. But with Jalen Williams on the advanced stuff, it probably has as much to do with the 3-point shooting, which I want to get to those numbers here in a second. He had 16 drives last night. Okay. And this is my favorite part about Jalen Williams' game. If it is not a center meeting him at the rim for any kind of contest, he's winning. He is winning whatever that physical battle is. This guy can finish left, right, the drives left, right, the handle, the control that he has, and the strength. And if you go back to the combine, he measured in without shoes at 6'4.5". So that's 6'6" NBA height. But his wingspan at 6'4.5", which I think is important to put out here, measured at that time was 7'2.25". 7'2.25" for a guy who, without shoes, is 6'4.5". So that was like the 11th best wingspan of 50, 60 guys that are measured at an NBA combine. And he's doing this, again, this is where the 3-point shooting comes in. He's not shooting it well from three. The Thunder continue to not shoot it well. They did last night, finally, but they were abysmal in game 4, and they still won that one. You're not really supposed to be able to do this in today's NBA, to win these many games in the playoffs and not hit from three. And you're not supposed to be able to drive, as Jalen Williams did last night, 16 times. I think there was a lot of downhill stuff where it felt like the leakiest the Pacers had been defensively over a long stretch of a game, of any game. You know, we could talk about the game 2 blowout. So I think you look at it differently, because the game is not necessarily in question, but a game that's actually still in question because of some of the scoring and the comeback that we have from the Pacers last night. It felt very downhillish. You know, if you were going to extend that pressure, and the Pacers felt like they had some kind of angle, and then these guys just start going and going and going. Jalen had 16 drives. I think that's like 2 up on his average throughout the playoffs. So it's not a dramatically different number, but visually last night, something that stood out to me. So OKC, 44% from 3 last night, just to run through it again. They're 34% overall in the playoffs. That's terrible. And it doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter. And like I said, with Williams, he's shooting it better in this series than he did against Denver or Memphis. He was 24% from 3 against Denver. He was 29% from 3 against Memphis. He's 32% in this series. He did shoot it really well from 3 against Minnesota, and it still doesn't matter. So it's 56-38 late in the first half. The turnover situation is another major part of last night's loss for the Pacers on this one. 23 turnovers, 32 points. That makes way more sense than the game 1 situation where you're like, how did the Thunder end up losing this one? Well, they forced 25 turnovers. The turnover stuff was just like, I think it was kind of a game 1 finals on the road jitters from the Pacers. Also, we know that every single pass is going to be contested. And if you're not crisp, if you're not holding on to your position as the recipient of the pass, which I saw a lot last night, like, you have to figure out a way to not only be open for the pass, but help out the passer by winning the pass. And some guys just get in a position and just sit there. And if you're going up against OKC, they're not going to concede the catch to you at any point. And the Pacers are still having a hard time with that. So back to the turnovers and turnovers leading to points. Again, game 1 was 25 turnovers, but only 11 points off of it. That's how the Thunder lost. I mean, we could point to a few different things, but that's a headline moment of how you lose a game like that. Last night, again, the 23 forced turnovers led to 32 points. So they basically tripled the point totals off of the turnovers, yet with 2 less turnovers. Halliburton last night, tough first half, tough night in general. 0-6, 4 points, 7 boards, 6 assists. His first scoreless half in a playoff game in his career. He had left the game, went in the back. Apparently, it was discussed at halftime, as we saw some of the post-game comments, of whether or not they would even try to get him back into the basketball game. And some reporters are reporting that he was walking pretty gingerly out of the building as they're headed back to travel for Indiana for Game 6. I'll be honest, I thought he was moving better than the way he was being talked about. That may seem unfair, but maybe it's just like, hey, we don't even know if this guy can come back into the game. It's like, well, what's he going to look like? Well, he's actually still kind of moving around a little bit. I think what was hurting him was he didn't feel comfortable, clearly. So it wasn't just a limping guy. It's like, how can that guy even be out on the floor? Like he had, maybe I was looking for it. I was expecting something worse. So that's why I'm saying what I'm saying right now. But it was very clear, and I love that Richard Jefferson had pointed this out, that whatever discomfort he had was impacting how aggressive he was going to be with his decision-making when he had the ball in his hands, because he had a moment to the right break three-point line where he swung it in the corner to, I think it was Siakam, who already had a defender right in his face. So it's like, you passed up an option for a worst option, which is nice that you're moving the ball, because it was like a catch and just zips it, which, some of our grade school coaches love. But in this case, it was like you actually passed it into a much worse option it was already defended. Like, it wasn't like it was this open three and they got to contest to it. So we'll see what this means. Him having that kind of game, you're likely not going to win. But having said all those things, this will be forgotten. But it was 56-38 late in the first half. They chip a couple points off of that at halftime. And the Pacers win the third quarter 34-28 with another TJ McConnell moment. I don't think the Thunder know what to do with this guy. Now, it looks like the goal is when McConnell's out there, he's just going. And it still feels like the Thunder aren't necessarily always ready for him to be like, he is not ever going to stop unless he's taking a three, which is going to take some time. And they play, it's like 5 out, but it's TJ McConnell. And then he just gets you right into the restricted area. You never know when he's actually going to take the shot. He has all these up fakes down because he's had to do this his entire life. And it's usually against a smaller defender, so that guy's kind of compromised. And if it's a switch, as we saw when he kind of came into the lane off a dribble, and Hartenstein's just not going to be able to get there in time because TJ already knows that he has to get that shot off. But I'm talking about like the dribble where he doesn't quite know what he's going to do. No one knows what to, like, they're afraid to do anything against him. It's actually kind of fascinating to see him be so incredibly impactful at the size, but they're basically spacing it out for him to attack one guy at the restricted area who then is worried about all the up fakes and the different angles that he can finish from. So he has 13 points in less than 7 minutes. So the Pacers win the quarter by 6. It's 87-79 going into the fourth. And by the way, the Pacers scored like 60 plus points in the second half. So it wasn't actually the offense, even though the Halliburton part of it. They were already down, so they're kind of fighting back into this thing. But as they're up 87-79, I was like, how did this not end up being a 30-point game? OKC in game one was up 85-76 going into the fourth quarter, and they needed Siakam big time. I thought Siakam was a little loose early on with the turnovers. He was still scoring. That defensive play that he had where he's backpedaling and then blocks the shot in transition was incredible. Speaking of transition, not sure I want Tony Bradley going coast to coast in the future, but he got free throws out of it, I believe. They needed it with Halliburton and him not making any shots from the floor, and Siakam delivered 12 points in 3.5 minutes, hits that three. I, like a lot of you, are probably going, how is this game 95-93? OKC is shooting it. They're getting the turnovers. They're getting the points off turnovers. Well, from that point on, at 95-93, OKC closes on a 25-16 run. And it's not even the 95-93 stretch. It's Jalen Williams. It's Chet switching into guys defensively where you can see the Pacers when they think they have the advantage against him. They do not. He might get you once. Like, he grabbed Halliburton's jersey. People were freaking out about that being a foul. It was definitely a foul. I didn't really think the officiating was a big part of this. I would say in its official side, this is an aside of the entire thing, at 92-84, where the ball's out of bounds and it wasn't off Chet, they called it off of Chet, and then Siakam went to grab the ball from Goebel, the official, and Goebel looks at him and is like, don't do that. And then they challenge it, they overturn it, they get the call right. Jokic fans hated that play because it proved the entire argument that it doesn't mean just because you're out there after a whistle that you're just in charge of the fucking game. A ref can actually be like, hold on. And in that moment, it was the right thing to hold on because they ended up getting the call right and turning it over. So even though it was 95-93, I think the most important part of this game was very clear. It's 105-97. There's 6:33 left. Like I can't. I'm like, this is a game. They're getting this huge Jalen Williams thing. I've already mentioned the 3-point shooting, the defensive action leading to all these turnovers. Siakam put together this great scoring stretch. Neesmith's always good for his late three. We're like, how did he hit that one? Turner's fighting his ass off this entire series, even if he's not necessarily shooting it well and doesn't look like he's in a huge hurry to take some 3-pointers that might be better looks than the next thing. But they scored a lot of points in the second half. But at 105-97, as I said, 6.5 left, the Pacers commit 4 straight turnovers. Turnover. And I thought they were all bad passes. Just can't. This team that has just answered every toughness question, right? Has shown as much as the Thunder have throughout this, and we can point to the game 4 collapse, but I don't know that you leave this series thinking the Pacers just aren't up to it, right? Nobody's going to say, hey, they're too young, which is what we were hearing with the Thunder when they were down 2-1 the whole time. But those 4 possessions are when they lost this game. And Rick Carlisle was sitting there at the podium last night. I watched it, and they kept asking him questions, and he just finally was like, hey, we turned it over 23 times. It's like, that's the game. And within those 23 turnovers, 4 in a row during that stretch where you've come all the way back from down 18 to get it to 2 points. You just did it in game 1. You know the blueprint. You're scoring points, and you just hand the ball over to them, which, again, is a credit to the Thunder's defense. So 1 game to go before Presti is officially great. This episode is brought to you by Uber Eats. Summer is here, and you can now get almost anything you need for your sunny days delivered with Uber Eats. What do I mean by almost? Well, you can't get a well-groomed lawn delivered, but you can get chicken parmesan delivered. A day in the sun? No. A bottle of rum? Yes. Uber Eats can definitely get you that. Get almost anything delivered with Uber Eats. Order now. For alcohol, you must be legal drinking age. Please enjoy responsibly. Product availability varies by region. See app for details. From F1, and now the winner of the Canadian Grand Prix, it is driver George Russell. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So I don't ever want to say something's easy because I know racing is not easy, but just a great qualifying. And then really, you just kind of, I knew you had the safety car there at the end. You had to worry about it maybe a little bit. But what's it like? I imagine winning is the best feeling, but to be in control of the race for a Sunday afternoon, what's that like?
It was great, to be honest. It's never easy, of course, but being out front, if you could choose, is probably the easiest part because you're the one who can manage the pace a little bit. And if you've got a bit of a buffer to those guys behind, you feel like in the zone. And the races are most challenging when things aren't going your way and you don't know why they're not going your way and how you're going to sort of overcome that deficit. So, it was good race. I was glad to get the win on the board for the first time this year.
I can't imagine that you would know all this is happening because you're in the car. So I'm at home watching it, and there was just so much chatter on the radio, like all of these drivers so upset, and I imagine, you're
what
sitting
are they
there.
Upset about?
Plan A, Plan B, Plan C. There was one team yelling Plan
Standard.
B. The driver yells Plan C. Albon had a tough day. There was just a lot. It seemed to be a little bit more intense on the radio, and it's one of our favorite things. The access to that while watching a race. When that's happening, is that just the disconnect? As you said, it's always part of it. But do you have to remind yourself that they have the long view and they can see the entire track despite what you're feeling in the car?
You do. There's things they see that we don't, but there's things we feel that they don't know either. So this is where you need the good relationship with your team. And it goes back to those days when things aren't going right. You're like, Plan B, Plan C, throw everything at it. And they're like, it's not going to work. And, that's when it's a tough day. But ultimately, if you're not on Plan A most of the time, things aren't going your way.
I guess there's another way to ask this. How often do you feel like after the race, you were right or the team was right?
But it depends how it goes, to be honest. I mean, if you're if you're saying you want one thing, but they're insistent they want the opposite, 9 times out of 10, it's for good reason. And I don't think, at least for me at Mercedes, I don't recall ever having a sort of disconnect there. Or, if they've told me one thing, I do trust in them. And if it doesn't go right, then there's a reason for it and you learn from it. You never really say like, I was in the right and you were in the wrong. I think you're on a bit of a downward spiral when you start finger pointing.
How often are you communicating, especially considering, your pace yesterday, but communicating with your team about where the McLarens are, where Max is, so that you have an idea of like, towards the end, it looked like Max was gaining a bit and then you pulled away. How much is that factored into the kind of the decisions you're making on the track?
A lot of it is, we're talking a couple of times a lap, but even it's not just about the guys we're racing. For example, at the beginning of the race around lap 12, my engineer told me I was 16 seconds ahead of Hulkenberg. And that was important because I knew a pit stop time was 18 seconds. And therefore, Max would probably be pitting soon because he would come out in front of Hulkenberg. So in simple terms, it was like, put the hammer down now because you need to pull the gap because the pit stops will be happening soon. So you're not only looking at the people you're racing, you're looking at the midfield cars because a guy at the front would never pit behind a midfield driver. So they're always looking for that pit window. And that was sort of crucial info for me at that time.
How important is it not just understanding your car and your strategy and multiple strategies you would have, but the individual scouting reports that you have on other drivers where it's like, okay, if this is who I'm battling today, I may have to think about it differently.
I always ask for like a race picture. I know the car directly behind me or the car in front of me. Fortunately, yesterday there was no one in front, so that was sort of one less thing to worry about. But, when drivers are on offset strategies, as I said, you might need to be worrying about, like Lando was in P5 and he was coming quick at one point. And I don't think he ever would have caught me up. And obviously overtaking was difficult, but there are circumstances where it's like, right, your race is with this guy. He's 3 positions behind, he's 10 seconds behind, but we predict he's going to be in our window, in our fight in a couple of laps from the end of the race. So that information is good, but most of the time it doesn't change how I drive because I'm driving as fast as possible and I'm never leaving anything on the table. If he catches me, he catches me. And if he doesn't, he doesn't. But I'm driving to the best of my ability and it doesn't change knowing that fact or not.
How different is it for you now? And I know you've been with Mercedes multiple years, but I think that first year at Williams was when a lot of F1 fans are like, okay, what George is doing with this car is remarkable. And yet it can feel like during a race that some of the drivers that don't have a chance to podium are kind of filler. And yet you're still a race car driver. And it's like, I'm supposed to get out of this guy's way, but I don't want to just like give up here. But now that you're in the Mercedes, has it completely shifted? You're like, get out of my way. You have no chance.
No, it hasn't shifted because, we're not achieving the results still that we are aiming for. Of course, yesterday was a great result, but we want to be fighting for a world championship, and results like yesterday haven't come often for us over the last couple of years. That's the nature of Formula One. It's you rarely see numerous teams fighting for a world championship. And there's so many great drivers who, Hulkenberg, he's a mega driver and he's never stood on the podium. There's some of the drivers who have never won a race who maybe deserve to, and other ones who haven't even fought for a championship. But that's just how the sport works. I haven't fought for a championship yet, but I feel capable for it. I feel ready for it. I feel I'm driving as good as anybody right now. And I know my time will come, and that's when you just have to keep motivated, keep the morale high, and just say, like, it may not be this year, it may not be next year, but I will be ready for when it does happen.
Do the cars feel more level this year than, say, the prior years when Max was just running away with it every weekend?
I would say slightly more level. Obviously, if you put Max in the best car, he's going to dominate. So that's that's just the fact of it. But, the McLaren is quick this year. I don't know how Max and I are so close to those guys in the championship, because they've had the fastest car 8 out of the 10 races so far this year. And yet they haven't won all of those races. So we've sort of been there to capitalize when they have been slipping up. But, they are two great drivers. But without doubt, that McLaren is a bit of a beast right now.
You're 27. I know you're aware of that, but just sharing that with the audience. Why
I do forget sometimes.
Well, with your teammate, which I want to get to here in a second. Why is youth such a massive advantage, it seems like, historically in the sport?
I think in all sports, really, you get to a point where you reach your peak and then you go over your peak. You don't see athletes competing into their 50s, and that's for a reason. So, what is the prime age? What is your peak? I don't feel that I'm close to my peak yet, because I still feel that I'm getting stronger every single race. I haven't seen a plateau yet in my performance. I still feel I'm getting stronger as an all-round driver, and it's not just solely about raw speed or race pace, but it's about racecraft. It's about how good your overtakes are, your defending, how many mistakes you make. Are you crashing? Are you keeping the car out of the wall? Are your race starts good? Are your reaction times good? It's all of these factors that contribute towards winning those races. And for us yesterday, turn 1 was obviously a big talking point. Max and I on the front row, and probably whoever got to turn 1 first would have won that race. So it's on me to make sure I'm the one who gets there in first place.
How great did that feel, just beating them off the start?
I got to be honest, I didn't really think twice about it. I just did my thing and focused on myself, because, I believed in myself a lot yesterday, because I knew I had the car beneath me. And I know when I have the car beneath me, I can win the race. So I wasn't there to try and prove a point to anyone. I wasn't there to sort of show Max who the boss is or anything like this. It's literally like, I'm in a race with myself here. I'm just going to drive to the best of my ability, get off the line well. And if I do that, I know I can win this race.
You said racecraft, and I am not even close to somebody that truly understands this, other than I just enjoy the sport, right? And so, the sports that I've grown up playing and watching, all the team sports, the American sports, that you can see a guy, you're like, oh, he plays like this basketball player, or this quarterback reminds me of this guy. When I was reading about you, it was like, at a very young age, he was so smooth. And I mean, there were these names of these legendary drivers that'd be new to me. Is that style something that you just instinctively have? Is it coaching? Is it a preference? Like, what was it about your style that kind of put you on the map in this world?
Well, I think what puts you on the map is your speed. It's not your style, it's your speed, because ultimately that is what matters. And then people start to dissect your style and your approach. But I've always felt like a race car, sometimes you've got to massage it. You can't just throw it into a corner and expect the car to stick every single occasion. But if you're a bit calmer with your steering movements, everything gets loaded up a little bit calmer. And over time, you then have more and more confidence in the car, and you can start carrying more speed. Because I think if you were just to slam on the brakes or just whack a curb, it puts the car under stress, and that the car doesn't like it. And sometimes it may work, sometimes it may not. And at the end of the day, everyone has different styles. And I always like to use the analogy of Federer, Djokovic, and Nadal. I did a podcast when they all had 20 Grand Slams each. And I'm like, these 3 guys, they're equal goats of tennis, but they play totally differently to one another. So if you're a young kid, if there was only Federer and there was no Nadal or Djokovic, people would say you have to play like Federer. And same if there was no Federer, Djokovic, people would say that you'd have to play like Nadal. But that was sort of living proof that you need to do what is right for you. How are you going to fulfill your potential? And, for sure, if Nadal tried to play like Federer, he wouldn't have won 20 Grand Slams, and vice versa. So you have to find your own way in life and sort of maximize your own abilities.
Looking at this from the outside, you carry yourself a certain way. There's a maturity that was evident very early on. And then I think of like, well, what would it be like if George Russell were on Manchester United at like 22 years old and you're part of a team? You can be a guy who's this celebrity. Is there a different responsibility as an F1 driver? Because, sure, you're with a team right now in Mercedes, but you kind of are your own person more so than maybe some of the other team sport athletes.
F1 is unique because it is a team sport and we're 2,000 people, but rightly or wrongly, there's only two guys who really get the limelight. And we carry that success when things go well, but also we carry everything when it goes against you. If the car isn't performing, ultimately you're the driver in the seat that is contributing to that. So it is challenging, it is difficult, and you often can't lean on your teammates in the same way as you would do in football or in a team sport. But that is, many sports are like that. You have the same in tennis. You're out there at one with yourself, but of course, the tennis racket is different to a race car. And, we are reliant on so many more people. But yeah, it's not straightforward.
When's the last time you were pulled over?
I was actually pulled over not that long ago in Austria, and also we get stopped by the police like quite often going to the racetrack. There's often a lot of traffic, and then fans recognize you and they run over to the car and they want selfies, and that's all cool. I mean, at one point it's causing so much chaos. You're like, all right, I'm at a red light here. I probably need to jump this to, for the safety of the people. You've got these kids running onto the track, so you're sort of a lawbreaker to protect the locals. And then the police are, what are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, you're an F1 driver. Okay, that's fine. Let's go and whatever. So, but yeah, a couple of years ago, I did get stopped for speeding.
Did they know who you were?
Yeah, they didn't care, to be honest.
You still got a ticket?
Yeah, I got a ticket. It was like 30 euros or something. I was quite surprised. It was like, I think I was over by 30 and they gave me 30 euros. And I thought, it doesn't quite add up those numbers, but
that's worth it. Really?
It was worth it, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Speaking of youth, Kimi Antonelli podiums yesterday, third youngest ever. He was terrific yesterday. And like we were joking around, it's got to be kind of weird for you to feel like this young guy coming into Mercedes, and you had, it wasn't the same thing as you coming in with Lewis, but what is that like for you? What is expected of you, and how is that relationship between somebody so young and so gifted?
Yeah, our relationship's great, to be honest. Kimi's got so much talent, and for sure he's going to be a fantastic driver. He already is a fantastic driver, and things aren't easy coming into Formula One as a rookie these days, let alone when you're joining a team like Mercedes. So to see him get his first podium yesterday and a really solid performance this whole weekend was great. But in terms of expectations upon me, I think the least that is expected. A lot of teammates, there's a lot of gamesmanship going on between their teammates because they see their teammate as their number one competitor. Because, I know racing against Kimi, he's in the same car as me, so we have equal opportunity. Whereas when I go up against Max or Lando, 1 week their car's quicker, last week our car was quicker. So there's never really that direct comparison. But I think the least that is expected is to be there to give a bit of advice, be open during the meetings. But he's a great driver. He doesn't need much advice.
Okay, so I do want to go back to this and just let me know if I'm wrong about this, because I'm just a guy consuming it from the TV show. You know, I've been watching the sport now for a bunch of years. The TV show got a lot of us in America into it. But, you know, when Lewis and Valtteri were Mercedes, and you were like figuring it out as an American, you're like, so this guy is his teammate of this legendary driver, and he's got a great car, but he's miserable because it seems like he's solely there for support. You come in, and it just, again, tell me if I'm reading it totally wrong, but it felt a bit like there were some earlier moments where Lewis is like, well, George is just like, thanks for being my teammate, but I'm here trying to get a championship. And it felt like there was a bit of a shift where it was like, well, if George is faster today, then you know, that's the way we're going to plan this thing out. I don't know if that's us from the outside seeing that be as like some resistance from Lewis in the beginning, but was that dynamic at all challenging when you first came over to Mercedes?
For me, it wasn't challenging. I don't think Lewis expected me to challenge him in the way I did, at least not from the very beginning. Because, you know, he came off the back of so many championships. He was always outperforming Valtteri, and he was going for the title. So Valtteri he wasn't there solely to support Lewis, but that's just how things panned out, because teams always get behind their fastest driver. You know, you've got to put your eggs in the basket that's going to give you the win. And for Mercedes, that was always Lewis. And then, you know, when I joined in 22, we were level on performance throughout that whole year, and I ended up finishing just ahead of him in the championship. Lewis was maybe slightly quicker than me that season, but I got slightly better results. And then year on year, I grew into the team more and felt more comfortable and confident, and sort of went from strength to strength. So yeah, there is truth behind sort of like this number one, number two driver, whether it's subconscious or not. But as you say, teams want to win, and you've got to back your fastest driver. Is as simple as that, really.
Can you be a good teammate and be a great driver?
Well, everyone on the grid's great drivers, but you got great drivers and superstar drivers.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Right.
That's the difference. You know, you're a superstar driver is never going to be the number two driver in a team. It's as simple as that.
I just remember Horner once saying, and it helped us understand the sport better, it's like, if you're going to be one of the great ones, you have to be a bastard.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. Like even McLaren yesterday, I mean, that's an awful scenario, but that was simply two guys fighting and not wanting to give up and not thinking about standings. So you see that happen, and you could say, what a disaster for the team. But to me, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you wouldn't ever be out there in the first place if you weren't thinking like, I'm not just going to let this guy pass me because he's my teammate.
Yeah, for sure. Things are different when you're going for a championship. You know, if you're fighting for a championship against your teammate, the dynamic changes naturally. You know, when I was teammates with Lewis, of course, I wanted to beat him every single week. But if I beat Lewis and I finished in fourth, I wasn't cracking open the champagne when I got home, you know?
Right.
And if he beat me and he was P4, okay, wasn't a great weekend, but I wasn't sulking about it. But when it comes to a championship fight, suddenly that every single position you're ahead or behind your teammate is such a momentum swing in the race. So then I wouldn't say the gloves are off a little bit, but the dynamic changes a little bit. And I'd be intrigued to see how the dynamic at McLaren changes, if it changes at all. If it doesn't change, that would be quite interesting in itself, if you know what I mean. And it doesn't really seem to be changing right now.
I know there's so much speculation about where you could be. How much would the car's performance influence what's next for you?
Well, for me, it's clear I want to be a world champion, and it's simple as that. And I want to be a world champion with Mercedes. Next year is a roll of a dice, flip of a coin for every single team. Like, we don't know. There's talks about Mercedes going to be strong. They're going to have the best engine. That may well be true, but McLaren have a Mercedes engine. So we've got to make sure we build a fast car. We don't know what Ferrari are going to do. You got new teams coming in, and there's just no guarantees. There could be surprises. So, I'm not going to be content spending my whole career fighting for podiums and the odd race win. My time doesn't go on forever, but I'm still 27, and I still feel my best years are ahead of me. And when I see the likes of, Alonso still going strong, well into his 40s, or when you look at, Djokovic in tennis, such a brutal sport on the body, yet he's still performing, late into his 30s, and that's far more brutal on the body than what we go through on a weekly basis. Of course, the risks are probably higher for us when it goes really wrong, but for an average competition, it's more brutal for them, I think, than it is for us. So seeing him still going strong, or Brady still performing into his 40s, why can't I do that?
How excited are you for the premiere of the movie tonight in New York? Perfect timing for you. I mean, you're just going to be everybody's favorite now.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I've actually seen the movie already.
Okay.
So I was impressed. To be honest, I was impressed. I wasn't sure what to expect, but because I don't think it's a secret, I'm saying this, but obviously the drivers are involved in the movie. Some of the team principals are there, and then obviously you have the Hollywood storyline. You sort of cater to everyone. Like, when we were seeing ourselves in the movie, it was quite funny, to see us there. And I think your diehards are also going to feel that way. And then, as for the movie, it's kind of like a Top Gun style thriller. So if you're not that much into F1, but you just want to see an awesome movie, that's what it is as well.
We'll enjoy it. And like you said, perfect timing. We've been trying to do this with you for a while. So thanks again, and congrats on the win yesterday.
Thank you so much. Been a pleasure.
It's going to be a big week for Duke basketball next week, with so many players potentially going in the lottery and multiple draft picks. And their head coach, Jon Scheyer, joins us on the pod. What's up, man? It's good to see you.
Man, it's an honor. Thanks for having me, Ryan.
Okay, so I want to go through the guys. We know, it could be 6 guys getting drafted here. It could be 3 in the lottery here. And let's start with the headliner, Cooper, who's going to go number 1. Tell me about the first time you saw Cooper play basketball.
I remember seeing Cooper play in person at the Peace Jam, which is, as big as any high school tournament that there is, AU. And he was in the back gym, court 2. He's 15U, Maine United. And you walk in and you see this kid. He had a triple-double in points, rebounds, and blocks. He's just flying all over the court. Took me about 2 minutes to realize. I remember the first segment, the first minute of the game, he had blocked, just pinned it off the backboard, and then came down and buried a transition 3. And I'd say, all right, I don't know many 15-year-olds doing that. And it was different. I don't know how to explain it other than it was different. His impact on winning, right? And that was the first time.
When I watched him this year, the first thing I could think of was that his parents must have just taken to the rim. They must have put him through everything because of the way he played. It's interesting. You can kind of tell how guys grew up as basketball players. And I'm like, the number of winners probably in the driveway where he was just trying to figure out a way to score against both of his parents. There's something, and I had heard stories too that, when you're as high profile as Cooper, what kind of person are we getting here? And it seems like the parents were very involved in him still being somebody that's coachable and not getting too caught up in his own hype, which I can understand any teenager being like, if I'm on the cover of magazines and people already want to give me NIL money and all this kind of stuff, I'm going to get really carried away. And it just seems like his demeanor, his approach to the game, and how willing he is as a teammate, that was just baked into the kind of guy where you're like, okay, we don't have to worry about all of this, like some of the concerns you have before a draft. It's like, I know how talented a player is, but what about the rest of the stuff with him? It seems like he checks the basketball boxes and the non-basketball boxes.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I've spent this offseason really trying to rethink and identify what makes a player successful. But obviously at Duke, I think it's a special kind of guy that's successful here. The best players I've ever coached, the parents have given them the most independence, if that makes sense. Like you can't control the outcome for your kid once they get to college and obviously professional. And so for Kelly and Ralph, his mom and dad, they're old school, so their approach and the things they value, they never talk to him about scoring. Their thing is always about being aggressive, defending, rebounding, like all the areas that impact winning. And then obviously they've allowed him to go through adversity. Cooper had as good of a season, as special of a season that I've ever been a part of with any player. But he had moments where, didn't go his way into the game. We lost, we had heartbreak, and it wasn't excuses at that time. It wasn't pointing the finger. It was what Cooper has to do better. So that's pretty old school. It's pretty special. I think it's the reason why he's going to be the number one pick and he's going to be a great player for a long time, is because of that independence. This is a kid that went to Mount Verde, for 2 years in high school. So 2 years at Mount Verde, a year at Duke, without holding his hand or trying to control everything. I think that says a lot about them. And it's translated to where Cooper is tough. And like you said, he's a great teammate too.
Yeah, the teammate stuff is really important to me because, I don't care who you are, what profile you have as a rookie, even as the number one pick, you're likely going to have to get out of somebody else's way. And then with Dallas ending up with the pick with established stars on the team, you're like, okay, well, maybe he's not the number one scoring option, but can you find a way to be impactful in these other ways? And I have the least amount of concern. I guess I would ask, because when you are the number one pick and it's like you're supposed to down the road be the face of this franchise, how do you project his NBA scoring when he's the number one option? Do you see, look, I don't think you're going to come on the pod and say, yeah, I'm actually a little worried about that, but do you see a path for him to have enough offensively where it's like you're carrying huge possessions at the close of a playoff game?
I'll be honest with you. His offensive skill set, and I got to see it every day in practice, was more advanced than I expected it to be. But also I thought it grew tremendously throughout the course of the season. When you look at his numbers, I think they can still wow you with what he did this past year. Keep in mind, we had over 20 games. We won by 20 plus points. He didn't play the last 5-6 minutes of a game a lot. And even in the games, we would get a lead and Cooper's passing it and doing all this. So he's so unselfish. That's his nature. He could have averaged 20 plus points this year. Going forward, I think he's going to be just fine because he has the ability to get to spots and raise over you, which you need to do in different moments of fourth quarters and playoffs and all that. He's shiftier than you realize, Ryan, to his ability to beat you off the bounce. And obviously as an athlete to go up and finish above the rim. And then the fact that you have to respect his shooting. I mean, he shot 45 from three as a 17-year-old, 18-year-old at that point, freshman. So really to score from three at the rim and then the ability to create his own shot with his shiftiness, handle, and just natural instincts, I think he's going to be one of the best scorers in the NBA in time.
Okay, let's talk about the next guy, Concanipple, because it would be easy for him to be frustrated. I mean, you had just a loaded class, as we all know. And then you're like, okay, you're going to have to figure out a way to fit in around, established guards, Cooper getting touches, Malawach's dominance at the rim. How much did he have to adjust to find a way to still be somebody who, like, okay, I know I'm going to get mine at times, but like, I'm not going to be the number one option all the time. How did he handle that?
I think it's the perfect balance of confidence with humility, and I remember I'm in my office right now. I remember sitting in here with Con on his visit. And I remember putting up on the board who we're recruiting, who could potentially be coming back. And there's some pretty good names I put up on the board. There's Cooper Flagg, there's Tyrese Proctor, there's Caleb Foster. We're at a time we're recruiting Dylan Harper, and I mean, big time players. And Con is just sitting back and saying, okay, I want to play with great players. I have confidence in myself. And sure enough, he came to campus, and it wasn't about fitting in, Ryan, or it wasn't about taking a back seat. It was figuring out just how Con made it perfectly clear you weren't going to keep him out of the lineup. He just right away established he was one of the best players. Many days he was arguably the best player on the floor. Cooper obviously has a unique talent that Con would say, yeah, he's the best player, but I'm right there. And his ability to impact winning a little bit differently than Cooper, but also in the same similarities with any loose ball he's getting. Key baskets. He's so crafty in the paint with his footwork and finishing. A really good athlete. Where he'll go up and finish above the rim and dunk on you. And then he's as pure of a shooter that I've coached in my time here.
Who taught him all of this off-ball cutting and setting up cuts? Like, where did he learn this stuff?
So have you heard of the flying knipples?
I guess not.
Yeah, you gotta do some research on the flying knipples. All right. And his dad is so both mom and dad played, but his dad is like with his brothers, they were the 3-on-3 champs. All right. Those are the flying knipples, and they would be going backdoor, setting screens, slipping, like all the things you would think of. The reason what you're asking, it's the flying knipples. And his dad, I actually asked him this after the season. I said, just where do you think Con gets some of this from? And he'd always be playing with his sons and going backdoor. And the value of the game, I talked about the flags with Con Sr. That's his dad, Con Sr. He talked about taking charges, rebounding, and getting any loose ball. That's come on, man. that doesn't happen. And so obviously Con, again, his shooting is pure. His skill set is unique. But for me as a coach, I know the value when there's a scrum, having a guy that's going to do whatever to put his body on the floor to come up with the ball, to rebound, to value the quote unquote little things, even though, there's no such thing as little things. He's incredible with that.
My favorite thing once I finally got through the work on him was I can't imagine him not finding a way to help whoever the other four are. If they're like, you could put him, hey, it's this group of four guys and they're really on-ball dominant guys. He's not going to get a ton of touches. He's not going to get to dribble more than a couple times. And then he'd be like, okay, fine. Like, I'll figure it out. And it's like, okay, now you're in with this group and like, you're going to be the second option. You're like, great. I'm going to run around screens. I'm going to set you up with something. I'm going to rescreen. There's even I don't want to get too carried away on the Klay Thompson, like Golden State stuff, but there's just certain things with young players where it's like the fact that he already understands that he can screen after someone screened for him. Right. And I know that's stuff that you're installing, and it's just his understanding of it and the instincts on some of these cuts. The off the ball stuff with him blew me away. All right. Speaking of being impressed, Malawach, as he developed, as it went through the tournament, seeing teams that maybe didn't have the full scattering report on you being like, hey, let's just switch it into the center. It's like, okay.
That's right.
Good luck. This is a different level. And what you hope to have as an NBA team is like, if we have a 5, we need a 5 that can survive out there and switches. And I know some of the agility stuff didn't test necessarily off the charts from at the combine, but watching the tape of it, it's like, yeah, but he's so big and his instincts are so good. And another thing that I really liked with him is as the season progressed, you could see him like kind of pointing out to teammates different things. He was getting excited about understanding like where the help was supposed to be. He just seemed to be somebody who completely embraced a limited role as far as the offense, and it never really took down his effort on the rebounding defensive part of it.
He's a special guy, man. Like his story, for
interviews, people love him, by the way, like
off the charts. I mean,
right. He and VJ, I think, have been like 2 of the favorite interviews I've heard the most from on teams. I
mean, you're just going to want him in the building because he picks up everybody around you. He's got that contagious of a personality. And, it was a big deal to get him, and just from South Sudan and his background. And so he has an amazing understanding for the game, despite only playing for 5 years. So like you talked about his talking and pointing and all that. He always knows where to be. I think the speed of the game, he's catching up, where there's going to be an adjustment period of understanding reaction time and things like that. But as far as ability to be 7'2" and a switch on some of the best guards in the country this past year, we're playing Alabama, and they had to pick a pop five. We ended up switching everything, and he sent down and guard Marcus Sears. He did that multiple times throughout the season. In addition to being able to play in a drop and protect the rim, his shot blocking numbers may not blow you away, but just his presence altered so much. The difference of when he was on the floor versus off, the percentage at the rim was different for our team. And that's going to be something going forward. And then another thing is his skill set. If you saw him in a workout, I think you'd be amazed with his skill set. There's just going to be a process in terms of how to translate that on the floor in real-time reads, real-time defense. But he has an amazing skill set, and that's growing, and he's going to be a guy that can space and shoot threes. He's obviously a lob threat. Him and Khan had a great, two-man game with that. It's a luxury as a college coach to have a 7'2" guy that can do the things that he does. It's a big-time thing.
It's funny. One of the only things I didn't like about Knippel's tape was he was so excited to throw it to Malawach on that lob. Is that the only times it felt like Malawach didn't finish is when Knippel was just like, well, he catches everything, so I'll throw it even though there's 3 guys on him. And those would be the ones that didn't work. But I totally understood why he did it, because I love that play. You get them side by side and Malawach is trailing it. And Knippel's like, it works every time I throw it up. I might as well just try it this time.
You know what? I had regrets as a coach 2 years prior. It took us about 25 games to realize how to throw Derek Lively lobs. And I'm like, all right, we're not waiting 25 games. Like, we got to do this earlier in the season. So I was always okay if they're trying to make that pass. And I would live with the results of that.
I don't know if it's challenging for the other guys, Proctor, James. I don't know if it's tougher because it's like these younger dudes come in and they're kind of getting all the draft headlines. But for you, who probably thought on draft night, going back to your playing career, like, is there a chance? And, depending on what you believe, the day of all the draft rumors and all that kind of stuff, how do you handle just guiding, now not just their head coach, but trying to guide some of the guys that have been around a little bit longer about like, hey, you're going to have to be patient and hopefully it goes your way next week?
Well, I think in Tyrese's case, that what he's done should be talked about a lot, because you have a guy who hasn't listened to the noise necessarily. There's been a lot of hype and all this stuff with Tyrese, and he's just kept his head down, gotten better each season. What he did from a shooting perspective and a defensive perspective this year was legit. I think it's translatable. He's going to be in a great spot. And I think I'm really proud of just his mentality, the resiliency that he's had through 3 seasons is going to prepare him well. And then in Sion's case, Sion, we got him. He had such an amazing value for our team this year. I think he was a perfect example of playing to his strengths and playing a role that directly translates what he's going to do in the NBA. He's a connector, defender. He's switching 1 through 5, high energy, great teammate. Shot almost 40 from 3 this past season. So I think the ability alongside Cooper and some of the guys we've talked about to be able to play that role at a high level is going to set him up for success right away in the NBA. Tyrese and Sion, I have no doubt, are NBA players, and they're going to be that at a high level with size, defense, shooting. So I'm excited to see where they go.
Do the guys know that you were called White Mike in high school?
Now they do. I made sure I sent the Pat Bev clip to everybody. So I sent that out. So now they do. None of them call me White Mike though.
Do you remember well, I'm sure you remember it, but we always ask guys that played, like, what's your favorite recruiting story? But I want to keep this into the interview because like it kind of translates into what recruiting is now for you. But I imagine, like, as a 5-star kid out of Illinois, like you wanted Duke more than anything else. So was it that hard for you?
I think I had a unique situation my high school coach was brothers with the head coach at Illinois. So Bruce Weber, Dave Weber was my coach. So there was a family tie to Illinois. Illinois was coming. That was a year where, D. Brown, Darren Williams, Luther Head, Roger Powell, that whole team, that they went undefeated for the majority of the year. So it was an exciting time. And end of the day, it just, I remember Coach K telling me, you got to feel it, like when you come to Duke. It just feels different, man. It just feels different. And I came here, and at that point, I knew in my heart what I wanted to do.
So what is it like now? I know there's a million different reasons why it's different, but you've been there 3 years. Granted, you were with the program prior to that, but now as the head coach, how different is it really in trying to get guys in?
It's a lot different. You're just dealing with, when I was recruited, right? It was about the process. It was about, 4 years. Did you have a chance to play right away? Of course you did. But, it really, the one and done thing started more after my time. Now, it's about immediate impact and opportunity. And that's really more a 1 year timeline. And then in some cases, maybe a 2 year timeline. But really, it's not about a 3 or 4 year deal. There's a business perspective to it. There's a business side of it, right? Just the world that we're in with rev share now. And this will be the first year that schools are actually paying student athletes to share that rev share. And we've had collectives, and it's been like this last couple of years. This year will be the most advanced it's been so far. So as a coach now, you have to think like a general manager. You're not just offering scholarships. You're getting to the point where now we're offering money. And I think as we go on, there'll be more advanced contracts and multi-year deals. And so the roster construction piece to this is huge. And then the retention and player development part of it is huge, because I think our landscape is changing. The transfer portal has not been something we've done a lot of. Other people have. I think last year in the Final Four, we played 5 freshmen in the Final Four game. And the other 3 schools played 1 total. I'm pretty sure. I'm almost positive that's the case. So I love the fact we're doing differently. I think we're knocking on the door. But you have to be able to keep key guys. Tyrese Proctor is an example. We have 5 guys returning this year: Isaiah Evans, Caleb Foster, Darren Harris, Malik Brown, Pat Gongba. I think in a lot of cases, those guys would go pro, transfer with environment in today's day and age. So I'm proud of the fact, of the top picks and all that, but I'm proud of the fact we can get our guys back for year 2 and year 3. I think that's really important.
Because in college football, the debate is with the transfer portal, with NIL, that should spread out the talent a little bit more. And, look, it's a different sport, and it's set of, the way you would set your roster. And I know Pitino had some headlines being like, we're just not even going to recruit the high school kids. We're just going to put together these transfer portal squads and figure out who's good at this level and then try to entice them that way. And then you hear it that way and you think, okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. But I would think for a special place like Duke, maybe it's not the same as college football. Like I still expect you guys to put together these recruiting classes that are going to be up there with everybody every single year. And because it's less players, I guess I just don't look at it the same way and thinking, okay, sure, the landscape is different, but it's still Duke. It's still the brand. It's still the success. So a kid that's special is going to at least listen to you because of what this program has been for 4 decades. So I imagine there's still a lot of value in that, that I think most people in college basketball and the high school part of it understand. But are you still seeing that in the pitch?
Yeah, well, end of the day, look, if you're to come visit for a game, playing here is as special as it gets. We have the biggest social following, in all of college sports. Like the stage is real. That's a real thing. I think the success rate of guys that have come in and continuing to have their value be either the same or if not higher, I think is a big deal in the development here. Like we play an NBA style. We've coming off a year, we have the most efficient offense in the history of college basketball last year. It's crazy to even say that, but it's true. I mean, so the way that our guys are playing here is the way they're going to have to play. But at the end of the day, so we can get in for sure. But I then really think it's still about identifying the right person, building that relationship. And then the NIL piece is something all of us have to figure out going forward. But yeah, I'm with you 100%.
What's it like having Coach K around?
It's cool. Not many coaches still have their coach in their life. They just, right? They don't. And Coach K has done an amazing job of letting me figure this out, right? Because you have to go through some moments where you make decisions, and then afterwards you're like, what the hell am I doing? Or I wish I did that differently. And I think the best competitors, you're really hard on yourself. And so for me, no coach bats 1,000. And so he's allowed me to do that. But then he's really been there for some of the key moments when I've been struggling, or when I've had to make key decisions, of just having somebody to bounce something off of, and being there to support. So that balance, I think he's done an incredible job of that. I love the fact that our players still get to, sometimes he'll get a lift in, and he'll cross pass, and he'll, make a comment to, come on, why didn't you go dunk that yesterday? Or, to Isaiah, you should have, done this, or those comments. I love that they still get to know my coach, and that's the part that's pretty special for me.
I debated whether or not I would ask you this, but I'm going to. What was it like the first time you watched the Houston tape?
So, first of all, that's I would ask me that if I was you too, because it's you see it all the time with big time moments where it doesn't go the way that you want it. That team for me, look, I feel we are the best team, right? I'm sure every coach of the Final Four felt like they had the best team. I did feel we were that. The best team doesn't always win, but you have to make those plays when it matters the most. And the thing that this group had done, we started off 4-2. Going into that game, we were 35-3. We'd shown up. These guys have made big time plays. And it's easy to look at the last minute of the game. You're winning by 6. You have the ball with under 50 seconds to go. Everything that had to go wrong went wrong. It's easy to look at that, and there's takeaways. I can promise my team will feel the importance of press breaks more than ever. I promise my team will feel the importance of you're up by 6, that's 3 possessions. If you keep them to 2s, you give up a 3 right away. Now it's a 1 possession game just on a switch. We have to talk better on a switch. But for me, really, the takeaway, the first time watching the game, I've watched it a lot. I didn't know if it would be something that I would watch once and be done, or watch a lot. I've watched it a lot. I felt we were out of character the whole game. Even though we were winning by 14, middle of the second half, there were just some uncharacteristic plays. And then obviously to beat a team like Houston, their DNA, they're never going to give up. You have to constantly put them away, and you open up the door just a little bit, all of a sudden they have life. And so I didn't feel, for me, it's not the final minute, it's the plays throughout the game of our defense, not typical switching. Rebounds, we gave up 18 offensive rebounds in that game. And so, yeah, we put ourselves in a position to win the game. I still feel, close it out, done, you're there. But there are takeaways throughout that game that will stay with me. And so that's how I feel.
I did not grow up a Duke fan. As a Big East guy, you probably guess how I felt about Duke when I was a kid. But I have grown to respect the program after working with so many alums, at ESPN, and having Coach K on and back in the day. So it was an appreciation that I had to grow into to understand how special that fraternity is. And I've rewatched that game multiple times, just doing the draft prep and focusing on different possessions of the guys that I'm looking at. And I think less than a minute when you have the ball, I can't. You're probably like, hey, we can end the interview now. I've lived it, but I'll keep looking at these possessions, going, what? Oh my God, oh this, and then this, and then this. And I thought you were the better team. I thought you were the best team in the country this year, so I wouldn't push back on any of that. I'm sure Florida has just as good of an argument. But the talent and the options you had, how you could play differently. But yeah, Houston can be really weird. I mean, there's a reason why Kelvin has put this together. Those guys are just dogs. And it's just such a crazy, crazy ending of the game. Again, we can move on. You don't need to follow up if you don't want to.
No, I'm going to tell you this. I think that's the beauty of our game, college basketball, and that's the heartbreaking shit that comes with it. Where you look at the NBA playoffs, right? How many times has Indiana won where they're down and they're down 8, they're down whatever it is? It's happened a bunch of times. It's like 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 100, and that happens. What's the best out of 7? So for us, when you're at a Final Four, like the magnitude of that moment, and that's a lot. We spend a lot of time with our team, just the magnitude of each play, the value of every possession, every decision. It's heightened. And I don't believe in all right, everything happens for a reason. We're going to learn. No. That sucked. And that was heartbreaking. But I'm also not going to apologize for our guys having 35 wins, Final Four, ACC regular season tournament champions. They did #1 offense in the history of college basketball, one of the best defenses. And they did it differently. I wouldn't trade it for anything. With that said, I can promise you, our mindset is to get right back there and to learn from it. So the only way, you got to lean into it, man. There's no running from it. You got to lean into it.
Last thought here on a draft note.
Oh, now we're going to the draft. After you take me down that road.
I can't say goodbye to you right now.
Yeah, thank you. Give me that's on a high note.
Well, hold on.
Oh, okay.
Your college career, I remember being like, man, can he play at the next level? And there's always, and you dealt with it your entire life, oh, this guy can't be that good, and that's why I love the Pat Bev story. That's why I like reading about your high school stuff. Be like, no, he did this. He didn't go to this high school. He stayed at home, put together this kind of resume, and he's this big time recruit coming out. Was it something that was obvious for you of the slight gap to not have an NBA career, or were you shocked when it became a reality?
I was well aware of how hard it was, how hard it was going to be. And it started off, I got mono during the draft process. So you talk about hard already. It's a lot harder. You're a skinny guy, man, and you lose 15 pounds during the draft process. That doesn't help you. Then I go to Summer League with the Heat, which I thought was a great experience. When I was in Miami, that's when LeBron had his announcement, I'm taking my talents to South Beach. And so all of a sudden, all right, minimum contract guys need shooting. All right, that's I'm ready. That's me. And then the second game, I got poked in the eye and had a major eye injury, which I was out for a while. So, man, I'm proud of my professional career still, even though I didn't make it with my ultimate goal. Played for Chris Finch in the Rio Grande Valley Vipers, which was an amazing experience, and I learned a lot coming from Duke. Played in Israel, played in Spain. But yeah, I knew how tough it would be. My experience, I was with the Clippers, for training camp, which was great. But that ultimate goal I didn't achieve. That's something I just always thought I would find a way. Bottom line, I never thought it wouldn't happen. I always thought I would find a way. And the pivot was, you get to be the youngest head coach in the country at 33, and you're at Duke as a head coach. This would have never happened. And so there's, again, the ability to pivot at 25 to get into coaching. This is a path I always saw, but I just thought it would happen at 35 after winning multiple championships for the Bulls. And, that's what I thought it would be.
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it, though, because if you're sitting around looking at the transaction wire going is there a mid-level for me somewhere? Can I go to Charlotte and get some threes up? You're not the head coach at Duke right now, and you're not going to be able to celebrate what is going to be a huge night for you and your players and this program. So I know you'll enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to next Wednesday.
I can't wait. Appreciate you having me on.
Thanks a lot, Jon.
Thanks.
You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari, 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Good morning, everyone. Life Advice. The email address, lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. It's good to see. Dudes are decked out in their NFL gear. The NFL never rests. Football, man.
We were just talking about this, yeah.
I saw a tweet. Scott Hansen was like 12 Sundays till football, and I was like, "You're goddamn right, it is." And just feel good.
I like Scott Hansen. I hate that tweet. Hate it every time he does it.
Even from him?
I'm like,
okay.
I just want to be like, hey, can I enjoy July and August? It's a very selfish reaction.
It's a little bit. I don't know.
No, I'd like to admit at times, I think when I'm like, no, this is a very selfish thing. But yeah, when you don't have a sports break since the previous August, like I don't care about the depth chart of Cincinnati right now.
I'm not saying I'm looking forward to that tweet every Sunday leading up, but it just crossed my path and I was like, yeah, great.
Before we get to business here, I want to just shout out one of my brothers, the DJ, who I'm very proud of, my guy Vaughn. He is working for this company. It's an app. It's a buddy of his, so it's not his thing. And for anybody that's missing the NBA with maybe one, possibly 2 games to go, the Four Keeps app, where, if you guys like the little handheld video games, little Sonic the Hedgehog-y, but some NBA flavor in it. So I just wanted to give him a shout out because I'm always impressed with his technical abilities in that world. I'm going to send you a link, Kyle, because I know, especially when you were on the bus, this would have been huge for you, just killing a little bit of time.
Oh, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, I'm a handheld guy, though.
Yeah. How about you, Wargon? You're probably more of a board game guy, no?
I do like a good board game. I don't like to game on the phone. It kills my battery. Just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Not for me.
We're getting into card games lately. That's been fun.
Like card games.
Yeah. But not like Cards Against Humanity. Like, oh, I can't believe you said that. Like a card game that's a little bit more about skill than like, what's the craziest thing you could say?
Sure.
But I guess those games have their place too.
Somebody brought over the game, What Do You Meme?
Yeah, wouldn't pick that one up in the Target aisle. Did you like it though?
Still here. We got, speaking of Oregon, hey guys, 6 foot, 190 pounds, 39 years old, attitude, no gym stats or basketball comp, unless there is one for a guy who peaked in 7th grade while guarding a future Michigan State guard and holding him to just 15 points. Huh. Wonder
3
what it means.
Nice.
I got to tell you, that's going to be a tough road to hoe when you feel like you've peaked at 7th grade.
Tell yourself something different.
His basketball career peaked, though, not like him as a person.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. But just think, there's somebody listening right now that's like, it's been all downhill since 7th grade.
Since I was the fastest kid at Lincoln Middle School.
Yeah. It's like you weren't better. You just genetically earlier. You weren't a better person.
It's a hard truth.
Yeah. Are you better off? Gladwell should get on that. Are you better off peaking late physically? Does it make you a better person?
Yeah, I imagine it would.
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I don't know either.
But there's a lot of evidence. There's a lot of evidence when you go back to your town, your hometown, that would suggest there may be something to this.
All those movies where the girl gets hot like senior year, she's always the nicest one, right?
Just takes her glasses off.
Yeah. Was under there the whole time.
Okay. As a side, I used to run track in college and thought about jumping in the mile time, but we're moving on from that. Yes, we are.
Thanks.
I normally listen to the pod audio only, but found my way to the video version. Thank you. Video pod now on the Spotify app. Saw it the other day, specifically for life advice. Got to agree with the guy who said Oregon was annoying at first, but now is a solid starter on the pod roster. Couldn't help but notice Oregon was holding his mic like someone who had never held a microphone before, holds his mic like a grudge.
Bob Barker.
Can we get him a mic stand so he can continue being a solid contributor and improving his overall approval rating? I don't know.
He just pulled one up. He's got it. Doesn't
I got
like
it. I choose not to.
I choose not to stand. I like you not having.
I like he's putting it in there right now.
We'll do one of these and I'll hold it.
But he's going to hold it anyway.
Yeah, I'm going to hold it.
Now I kind of want to order a Bob Barker one. Wow.
I had it in the mic stand a couple days ago. It's just so low. And I listened back to my audio and it sounded terrible. So I'm just going to hold it.
It does bring up, this is really the real point of reading this, is it does bring up, like when Ceruti's back, what's going to happen? We're going to go 4 wide. Seems like a lot of dudes.
It is a lot of dudes.
Someone's got a DH every once in a while.
I wonder if Mike likes his. I think Mike likes his camera off anyway. And then he parachutes in. I don't know. We'll see if
I'm happy to do that.
That dynamic works. I don't know. It's not going to be a fun day.
Can you handle less touches?
Yeah. I'm all about the team.
That's what a lot of people say.
Yeah. Until they get less touches.
Right. Van Gundy, everybody wants to win, but they want to win on their terms. Okay. Let's see here. You know what? We don't like doing this, or I don't like doing this, but since it's so specific and I know how happy Kyle is going to be, here's the email. Rex for Bars in Poughkeepsie. Hey, fellas, 5'9", 185, 29-year-old who just graduated from MIT Sloan this past month. Whoa. Going back to my consulting gig in Boston, helped organize the Sloan Sports Conference last year and had to give kudos to Russillo for his Daryl impersonation on Bill's show last night. Surprisingly solid. Yeah, I have a good Daryl impersonation. 2 weeks ago, I was in Manhattan Beach visiting with my... What? Is this about Poughkeepsie? As I drove down the hill toward Shellbacks, I somehow didn't notice this jack guy in a hat crossing the street until he was right next to my car. I waved to apologize for almost hitting him, only to realize that it was Russillo. I rolled the window down and yelled, "Russillo, you're the man," to which I got a polite wave. Guy handles fandom with such class. I do remember this. You did
on your way to Shellbacks?
Yeah, in the middle of the day. No,
you better not find out.
Yeah, right. Hey, just decided to go on a vendor at Shellbacks in the middle of the week with the light out still. I wouldn't do that to you, Kyle.
Thanks.
If I'm at that point, I'll let you know. Anyway, yeah, this guy, there's a weird, I got to tell you, Manhattan Beach has a lot of like crossing streets where, again, pedestrian right away, but there's some where the pedestrians are a touch too aggressive, I would say. If anybody has been through the area or spent time here, they know exactly what I'm talking about. But where he thinks he almost peed in, it's just that you have to stop and it's like 2 lanes and it's a little confusing if you've never driven there before. You're like, what am I doing here? People are just darting left and right and there's no light and I'm just supposed to stop or whatever. But I remember when this guy said hello, he wasn't close to hitting me. I'm surprised he wouldn't be able to figure out some of the, the distance based on that Sloan background. I don't think that was a contested crossing. But anyway, I appreciate you saying that. Okay, 2-part question for you guys that seemed to spark some Ryan Kyle collab bonding. My buddy's getting married in July. We planned a last-minute bachelor party this upcoming weekend. The bulk of the friend group works in finance in New York, so to make it as convenient for everyone as possible, we booked an Airbnb in Wappingers Falls.
Wappinger, yeah.
Wappingers, okay. About a 15-minute drive outside of Poughkeepsie.
Yeah,
when I heard the place was near Poughkeepsie, I immediately thought of Cousin Kyle. Question, where should one go to watch the Pacers-Thunder game on Thursday night?
Hurricane
okay.
Grill and Wings.
Where would Kyle take Ryan to watch if Ryan were in town?
Also Hurricane.
Okay, thank you. For some context, the guys were in my college fraternity. We developed quite a taste for sports gambling and are in a group chat entitled Parlez-Vous Football. Funny.
Cute.
When we send over our favorite bets to build a parlay with a return usually around $10. Okay, $200 a guy each week. I don't know. We've had some success and expanded our purview to basketball and other sports. And one of these guys are going Nash Equilibrium on us. We'd like to invite Ryan, Kyle, and Wargon to participate in our Bachelor Weekend Finals Parlay Special. Question 2, what bets do you guys like for Thursday's game? Is this an ad?
I don't know. Who you're placing the bet with? That's how I'll know if I can answer or not.
Kyle, why don't you, when I'm talking far too long on the next one, put together something for this guy? Because
Okay.
You've already nailed it with Hurricanes, and you just
I
put
don't have
together
much
something-
left for this. Yeah, sure.
Right, something that you like for Game 6.
Okay.
But we'd usually do some combo, a spread, and player props to get the 2 to 3 times payout range. We'll leave it open to what you guys like. I promise you, I did not read this because it's like, all right, check out the number one American sportsbook. America's number one sportsbook usually is the way we say that. FanDuel.com. Sportsbook.fanduel.com. All right, let me know. We can connect on Venmo, partially joking, also including screenshots of our group chat. I'll be driving down to New York Wednesday night, and the pod will be rolling. So look at this. It's Tuesday. And, oh, by the way, this guy's from Ansonia on top of everything else. Stanford Steve, worlds colliding. I wonder how many people from Ansonia ended up at MIT. We'll get Stanford Steve on that one. I think we covered it then, right? You're going to put something together for this guy for Game 6?
Yeah, we can't take this guy's money. I'm almost done with my Band of Brothers rewatch, and Winners comes up to, I think it was Buck, or there was the other guy, Compton, and he's like, never put yourself in a position where you take from these men. So I don't think we can do that. Love Band of Brothers.
You can tell him what you like.
Yeah, totally. I'm just saying we can't.
Yeah.
we can't connect over Venmo anymore. When I was taking the bus, it's a different thing.
We don't do that. Hey, by the way, that person that sent in an Amazon gift card for ginger ale, was that real? Did that work?
I didn't do it. I just told Mike that when I saw the email. That I will take, because I mean he's getting an honest opinion about Verner's. So I'll see what I can do there.
Man, whenever I see those Amazon wish list links to some girl that's like, would you date me? Am I too fat?
That is what it is. That's so funny.
It's that all the time. And they're like total knockouts. You know, they'll just be like, no one likes me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to order her a soda organizer. Let's see here. Hey, remember me? I'm Nick, the guy that sent the soda organizer. I don't think you're too fat. All right. Wife's daily gym report. Speaking about not being too fat. NBA comp, Ben Simmons, because it's been at least a couple years since I've really enjoyed one of these same old comps. At this point, I'm just reluctantly going through the motions out of obligation. Gym stats, unremarkable, but my wife's are the crux of my predicament. Around 5 days a week, she attends a group weight training session with an emphasis on heavy lifts. She enjoys it, releases stress from a long work day. It's an environment where she's confident. She's proud of her physique. Of course, this is all great. The only issue is that apparently a critical part of her routine is regaling me with a daily status report. Today, her play-by-play crescendoed with a deadlift PR of 230 pounds. Equally critical is that I give her report undivided, rapt attention. And if I'm not locked in or don't ask follow-up questions, she'll ask why I don't care. I'm happy she's happy, but it's just kind of uninteresting to have the same-ish conversation so often. Is there a way I can ask her to dial it back without squelching her story? Do I fight fire with fire and impose a daily detailed breakdown of the totally sick guitar licks I've been working on? I'd like to hear about those. Do I just accept this as a small price to pay for her happiness and hotness? She's awesome. I can't complain about much. Yeah, I think you nailed it at the very end. You know the answer. Just sit back, listen, enjoy the PR stats. Maybe a follow-up here or there. Maybe you could prep a follow-up, but I think the payoff is much better than the slight annoyance. And look, if you're with somebody a really, really long time, sometimes I would think about like, oh my God, I'm telling this story. Like, this isn't interesting, but you're just there. I mean, unless you meet somebody who's really quiet, which may not be for a lot of people either. Maybe there's a lot of dudes that would like that, but just understand, like, that's part of what you're dealing with. And you guys are the married guys. Like, Kyle, do you like every story from your wife?
No. And I know how to put on a real good face, though. Real good face. Couple ad libs. No way.
You spend so much time together. Like, not everything's interesting. Like, that's kind of life.
Not everything is interesting, Wargon.
Although
Well
I
said.
was throwing around some 15s yesterday. You would have thought they were 12.5s. Let me tell you that.
Can you give us another, as if you forgot your line? No, well, you didn't forget your line. Can you give us another impromptu, that's crazy, Kyle? Because I love that. 3, 2, 1.
Did I say that?
No. Kyle.
Oh.
Give me the 3, 2, 1 again.
Right. So I'm your wife. I've just told an uninteresting story. Give me your best. That's crazy. 3, 2, 1.
Well, that's not true.
Oh, okay. You switched it up on me.
Yeah. And she said, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, well, we both know that's not true.
Dale Earnhardt's like, you're the best driver I've ever seen. I don't know that we need a ton of discussion on this one. You're just going to have to listen to some stuff sometimes that you don't want to listen to. Like, who the hell's marrying anybody thinking like, I can't wait? Now, granted, the daily stuff, right? That's why I used to always hate the golf question on the radio show. Because again, we've covered this because Van Pelt and I constantly laugh about it, you know, have Lynn Swan on. How are you hitting them? Keeping them straight. And I've just always felt like that was one question. Great, if this guy's going to answer this. But there's also like something to be said, even though I'm enjoying golf now in a way I never enjoyed it before. I was like, oh, I should, if I just, and they're like, oh my God, I just annoyed myself. by recapping some of this stuff. So it's new. She's really excited. And there's worse things to talk about, man. And the fact that there's also like a benefit to you that your wife is taking it this seriously. Like this is really one of those blame pie things. If you just, it's a really small sliver of annoyance for what I think is a much greater payout.
Got to build up those mental calluses.
Maybe look inward too, because all your stories are not interesting as well.
What do you think your least interesting stories are, Wargon?
Ooh, great question. Probably easier to say what my interesting stories are. I don't know. It's got to be like what I do during work. Like, what did we talk about on the podcast? Dude. I never remember. Do you guys remember?
I can't wait till Ceruti's back.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
2 seconds after record, I have no idea.
It's true. I forget. There's like a brain wipe that happens to me too.
Yeah, totally.
So we're doing this before we're taping Ron Chernow, which is something I've been waiting years for. I'm learning that today. Will you listen to that interview, or are you just, what are you doing back there?
I'm listening, and then like as soon as I'm done, it's like gone.
I think you kind of like really dissed the show just now.
In my defense, it's every show though.
Well,
no,
this
honey,
isn't every show.
The show is great. I love the show, honey. You know I love the show.
We'd like to think there's a standard here.
The best was what episode of Food News? I make the rundowns for that show.
I haven't moved on.
It's like a side story.
Mike's trying to sidestep this
No.
whole
So
thing.
I put a story on the rundown, and we're all sitting there, and we go, "Did we talk about this on last week's episode?" None of us could remember. We had to go back and listen to it.
So you're just a turn the page guy. Oh, Food News? What is that?
No, I'm saying I used to do Food News when it was a part of House of Carbs.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Anyway. What else we got? Let's get off of this one.
I can't believe somebody sent Kyle an Amazon gift card for ginger ale. But
now you're making me worried that this is like a trap link, like a phishing, it's just going to take over my computer.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try it on my phone. I think
people are signing up for insurance quotes constantly with this email address. One day I swear I'll read one. Like the general can save me. What? I'm a Wait, this is the Raising Cane's Coke guy. Remember that story? Well, Wargon doesn't. Height 6'1", 185. Max bench 175. Well, it's gonna be we're probably not taking your side on anything. NBA player comp. I'm like a shorter Bobby Portis, not super quick on my feet, but I get buckets and have a decent little post game. I'm the Raising Cane's Coke guy, who my manager, let's call him, well, I don't know, is we using real names here? Let's call him Dave, just in case, wrote about a few weeks ago. Okay, so the manager emailed us. You guys remember, he said just a Coke. And then this guy apparently is the guy that filled it up with Coke Zero.
Yes.
Some of us on the team love listening to the pod, the BS Pod, Zach Lowe show. So we're pretty big ringer heads. Needless to say, we found it. Why don't you listen to Van? We found it very amusing when you read about my Coke Zero versus Coca-Cola blunder on Life Advice. I'm not writing to defend myself on the move I pulled. I'll graciously take the L because I can admit I made a mistake and definitely put way too much thought into something as simple as brown, fizzy sugar water. Doesn't sound like a soda drinker, so maybe it makes even more sense that they made the mistake. However, I will say I think it was like that Jim and Andy big tuna moment on The Office where a joke gets milked for too long. Tuna.
That was a great tuna.
At the time, my mistake was pretty insignificant and mildly humorous blunder, but week after week, Dave, let's call this guy Dave, I don't know, just kept bringing it up as if it was this masterclass in a comedy of errors, which ended up being slightly annoying. This brings me to my concern. How do I tell Dave to get new material when he's beating a dead horse? He even roped in the rest of our team who doesn't care about this podcast and showed the Life Advice segment during a meeting this week. The joke is past its expiration date, and I think many could relate to this situation. Love the pod. Enjoy the finals. All right, so we do, I guess we all remember that.
Yeah.
I do. Just to be clear here, this guy is writing this in, and he's taking a direct shot at the manager.
Yes. Who's definitely going to hear it.
Yeah, who's definitely going to hear it.
You may have
'cause he
solved
emailed
it,
the
or you
show.
may have made it worse. I don't know if there's anything else you can do that would make it better. Because initially, my initial reaction was like, just put a 12 case of classic Coke on the desk. But I think that would lean the way he doesn't want it. This guy, he just doesn't want this guy to think about it anymore. So this either right now did the trick, or you just dug a few feet deeper in this hole. I'm not really sure.
I feel like this is the type of thing that dudes remember for the rest of their lives. Like, you're never getting out of this one.
Fire guy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think this joke should last a lifetime.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a Coke Zero blunder. I think I'm with the emailer here. I mean, even though we totally understood how crazy that was, and if you say Coke, you just expect a traditional Coke, and if somebody pours Coke Zero, but like, and when this guy retires and gets the gold watch, is this the opening material? That would seem excessive.
Yes.
But I think the bigger thing is, I don't know that he realized it. They must have a great working environment. You're going to go back at the manager?
Who's then going to show this on Friday's meeting?
On a big, this isn't some local high school football podcast, okay? We're global.
Do they have those?
Yeah, dude. There's
Maybe in
podcasts
Texas?
for anything.
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah,
kidding?
Texas. You're right. I'm sorry.
Texas, hell, they're probably 4th, 5th. I don't know. All right. Oh yeah, wait. There's a good one, and we have time for it here. No offense to the previous emails that we've read; they're all great too. All right, let me see if I can find the one. I guess I didn't flag it, but I will find it. Talk amongst yourselves here.
Speaking of Van, Face of the Ringer rankings come out Thursday. What are we thinking?
I don't like
Well,
this.
is Bill eligible? It has to be Bill. I mean,
I think it's
I
gotta
feel
be
like that's
Bill.
going to be in the fine print that he's like, it can't be Bill. Otherwise, why would we do this?
I think Van's making too big of a deal of it for it to be Bill, though.
Okay, so if it can't be Bill, who is it?
Chris Ryan.
I would think CR.
Yeah. I mean, you really have to be thinking about the face of the Ringer. Who can fill a million different roles?
Who does the
can-
most things? Yeah.
Yeah. Who feels like he's the essence of what this company is all about? I don't think there's any question.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah. Did you find it yet?
Nope, because it was really good too.
Type in some keywords in the email in the search bar, maybe.
Yep. Trying to find it. I really was hoping you guys would fill this a little bit more.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
This is
That
editing.
makes sense.
I don't know. All right.
because this.
This would be so classic if we have to cut the whole part where you even mention it
No.
because we couldn't find it. Well, we wouldn't do that. We'd just promise it and then put the music in.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know. Here it is.
Nice.
First try.
Oh, see, he rescinded it. That's why he rescinded it this morning.
You can take back an email?
Love
no,
to know how that works. That's the case.
He said, I rescinded. I just needed to get it out because now I realize how fucking dumb this question was. I thought it was kind of interesting, and he was tall, so we're going to give it to him on that one. All right, let's do a blind quick one here. 27, 5'11", 170. Don't lift a lot. More of a marathon guy. That's why I couldn't find it, because I knew I had read it, but I guess I didn't flag it. And then he had already updated his own thing. It was like, don't read it. So there you go. Just who knows? Minutes. It could be generations have just been decided on me not reading that one. My wife and I have been living in our house post-marriage for about 1.5 years. The house next door has been on the market for a bit, but the new neighbors moved earlier this year. Admittedly, been a bad neighbor. Not introduced ourselves, but also nobody else introduced themselves to us when we moved in. Don't pay it forward, actually. The opposite of that script. New neighbors have a big lab. I guess they mean Labrador for the scientists.
Yeah,
out
we're not
there.
talking
Could be a
Matt.
laboratory. You never know.
I don't know if the chemical waste is being. All right, so let it off the leash in the front yard. No worries at all. We consider our dog very well trained and let it walk around supervised. We are dog people. Today, while I was working from home from once, I saw their dog come into my yard, take a massive dump in the flower bed. The owner, maybe around the same age and significantly bigger than me. What size is our guy here? 5'11", 170. watched the dog do this from a sidewalk with a drink in his hand and then walk back inside. Granted, the dog did it behind a small tree, so maybe he didn't see it, but maybe he did. Now, this is the first time I've seen his dog do it. I found multiple big dog poops in my yard in the past. Do I just let it slide? Do I go introduce myself and ask him to pick up after his dog and I will do the same? Or do I fling it over the fence into the backyard? That last part was a joke. What do you think? You feel like you let it go when it's one confirmed on the record, but when you start seeing 2 or 3, then something has to happen.
So it needs to be confirmed? Because
he's got one confirmation.
He's got one confirmation, but he's got evidence for a while, right?
Yes, that's what
and
it
also
sounds like.
We're talking about deep in the yard. We're not talking about on the edge. We're talking flower beds. So we know it's got to be a dog off leash, especially if we're assuming you know the difference between deer shit, dog shit, whatever. So
is he a tracker?
Well, I mean, deer shits are little pebbles, right? So
12 clicks this way.
So my point is that it's been going on for a while. You just figured out what it is. I mean, how many times are you going to be in the right place at the right time? You said you were working from home for once. You know, this might be your opportunity. I hope this happened yesterday. If you're going to do something about it, you don't want it to be a few days ago, because I imagine that guy knows what his dog's doing. I imagine he knows. So, like, if you wait a couple of days, he'll be like, "That was 4 days ago." Like, you guys are both on the same page that this dog did it. And if you wait too long to bring up this incident, it'll be like, well, it's been a few days. That could have been anyone. I think this guy knows. So, I think it's enough, especially if you have other evidence and you're like, hey, I was just wondering, and I finally found out what it was. You know, I randomly saw your dog do it. And, you know, I don't know if you knew, even though we both know he knows. You say it sort of like, not as a favor to him. Be like, I don't even know if you know this, but I just wanted to come and let you know that your dog's been shitting in my yard.
I think it's totally fair. I think the drink in the hand makes it more incriminating.
Do we think it's like an alcoholic drink or like a coffee?
If it's a can of beer, you're like, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, it matters.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what number it is. But yeah, I'd say if you have a second confirmation, you're going to have to get a little bit more confrontational. That'll do it for the pod today. Thanks to Jonathan Frias. Thanks to Wargon. Thanks to Kyle. You can check out the pod, which is now a video pod, as you know, on the Spotify app, our YouTube page. Please subscribe to that. Thanks for listening. Ryen Russillo Podcast, Ringer Spotify.
They were going to name me Michael Jordan. My dad was like, I don't think he can live up to it, so they named me Michael Jared.
Must be 21 and older and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is there. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.